Back to another video of just coding. And today we'll be solving 739 daily temperatures, a very popular Leetcode question on our first medium of the channel. So reading the description to you guys, given an array of integers temperatures, which represents the daily temperatures, we want to return an array answer such as the answer I is the number of days you have to wait until the ith day gets a warmer temperature. Okay, simple enough. And if there's no future days for which this is possible, we leave the current answer at the index to 0 instead. So going over quickly to go over the first example, we see that it's only one day to get a warmer temperature from 73 to 74. But at 75, our second index in our array, it takes 4 days, which is to get to 76, okay? And for our next index, 71, is 2 days to get 72. At 69, it's only 1 day to get 72. And since 76 is the largest input in our array, it takes 0 days. And we always know that the last value is always going to be 0 because there's no value to check with it, to check if it's greater or not. So it's always going to remain 0. And for the second example, it looks like it's strictly increasing, right? And so everything is 1 except the last value again. And the same thing for the last test case. Okay, great. We give them some constraints. So it looks like we're always going to have a value, which is great. And the temperature ranges. Okay, so it's gonna be. So I'm guessing this is probably like standard Fahrenheit, but I probably don't really have to get into it, or Celsius, I guess. Uh, so we can start off with some of our base cases, which is typically just the first two examples. We don't have to like really go into depth with this, I just explained, but let's think about some cases where all the outputs are 0, right? So when it comes to like outputs where it's 0, one of them being if it's strictly decreasing, which is the opposite of strictly increasing. So if there's no greater value that comes after a certain index, we know that everything is going to be 0. If there's one single element, there's no value to compare with, which is 0. And if all the temperatures are the same, it's gonna be an array full of zeros as our answer, right? And so we could typically just rephrase this question as given a list of daily temperatures, we want to return a list where the index contains the number of days until a warmer temperature occurs. And then there's no warmer temperatures is found, we would just like to let it remain at the current index to 0, right? And today's approach is a little different. I kind of wrote it out in pseudocode, right? And so first what I like to do is to like create a list, right? Filled with zeros the same size with the same number of indexes as our input temperatures. And we'll like to use a stack. Typically, this is a monotonic stack to just track the indices of each temperature as we push onto the stack. And so as we iterate through the list, while the stack is not empty and the current temperature is greater than the temperature at the index stored at the top of the stack, right? We pop from the top of the stack and update the results for that index with the difference between the current index and the popped index, right? And so this isn't initially gonna run. So we're always gonna actually push the index that we're iterating onto the stack, right? After this condition, right? And so first, our stack is not going to have anything. So this condition is not going to be true. And so we have to push the current index until we find a greater index. And then we continuously pop from it, right? And the reason why we use a while loop. So for example, if you go back to like the first example and just look, just look on line 7, right? We see that for 72. So 71 and 76 would be added to our stack, right? But when we reach 72, we want to continue to pop. We would want to continue to pop and remove 69 from our top of the stack because 72 is greater. And then same thing from here. And then this would be the only value that would be added to our stack at the very end, right? And so to start, and so now we'd like to start writing the code. Let's start off by creating our results array, which is going to be the size of our input temperatures, right? And also our stack, which is just going to be an empty array so far. And we would like to, while we iterate, we would like to enumerate, although we don't have to, which is just going to simplify it for us. So instead of index, I could just use current index, right? And then current temp, right? And enumerate as we enumerate through our temperatures. And then we always got to remember for the first loop, we're actually adding the index into our stack. And while we do have something on our stack and the temperature on top of the stack from the index is less than our current temperature, we'd like to get the previous temperature, which is going to be, oh, let me actually correct this real quick. Index, and our previous index is going to be what we pop from the top of a stack, and we'd like to update it in our results, which is going to be previous index is set to the current index minus the previous index. I believe this should be all the code, and now we can actually just return our results. So let me just double check everything. Okay, it looks good, and let's see if it runs. Okay, it passes all the simple test cases, and now let's submit it, and let's see if we rank. Good. Thank you so much for tuning in as we solved this question for today, and I'd like to give you the time and space complexities being both linear, big O of n, which is because our results is always going to be the size of the input value, and at most we'll be iterating through all the input values, and then we'll just use a stack, which is still linear time. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a nice day, and if there's any questions that you would like me to solve, just please leave them down below as we continue on the journey together, and have a nice day.